Why people feel stuck. Even when they're capable, what's missing isn't skill or motivation. There's a quiet frustration a lot of capable people live with. They're smart. They're responsible. They work hard. They do what's asked of them. And yet, they feel stuck. Not lazy, not unmotivated, not unqualified, just stuck. And when that happens, people usually turn inward. They assume something is wrong with them. But in most cases, the problem isn't personal at all. It's structural. Capability without movement. Here's something we don't say enough. Capability alone does not produce progress. You can have skills, knowledge, experience, training, good intentions, and still struggle to move forward. Because capability answers one question: can I do this? But progress depends on a different question. What should I do next? And how do I know it's the right move? When that question goes unanswered, even capable people slow down, hesitate, or spin. What's actually missing? Most people are trained to follow instructions, complete tasks, meet requirements, stay compliant. Very few are taught how to navigate uncertainty. So, when situations become less clear, when priorities compete, expectations conflict, or risk increases, people lose traction. Not because they don't care, not because they lack ability, but because they're operating without a clear way to orient themselves in complex situations. How this shows up in real life. You've probably seen this play out. The person who's always getting ready. They keep learning, they keep preparing, they keep waiting. They're not afraid of work, they're unsure of timing. So they stay in motion without moving forward. The high performer who's always overloaded. They say yes to everything. They absorb responsibility. They become indispensable and exhausted. They're capable, but they're carrying more than they should because there's no clear way to decide what actually deserves their energy. The manager who senses problems early. They see patterns forming, but they wait. Not out of avoidance, out of uncertainty about when action is justified. So small issues grow quietly in the background. Why this becomes an organizational problem. This isn't just an individual issue. When people lack structural clarity, decisions slow down. Risk accumulates quietly. Errors repeat. Accountability becomes fuzzy. Training doesn't translate into behavior. Organizations then ask questions like, why didn't anyone act sooner? We trained them. Why didn't it stick? How did this happen again? The answers usually point to people, but the real issue lives upstream, in how people are expected to think and act under real-world conditions. Why traditional training doesn't solve this? Most training focuses on information rules, procedures, awareness. But real work doesn't arrive as a clean instruction manual. It arrives as partial information, time pressure, human behavior, competing priorities, consequences that aren't obvious until later. When people are only trained on what to know, but not how to navigate complexity, they hesitate when it matters most. What changes? When clarity is introduced. When people gain clarity about how to orient themselves in uncertainty, what matters most in the moment when action is warranted, how to explain and defend decisions. Something shifts. They move with less stress. They act earlier instead of later. They stop waiting for perfect certainty. They reduce repeat issues instead of reacting to them. They don't become reckless. They become steady. What we mean by real-world readiness. At Success Track, when we talk about real-world readiness, this is what we're pointing to. Not just completing training, passing assessments, knowing the rules, but being able to function effectively when conditions aren't ideal. That's what reduces risk. That's what improves readiness. That's what turns capability into performance. If you've ever felt stuck despite being capable, understand this. It wasn't a personal failure. It wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't a lack of intelligence. You were operating in complexity without enough structure. And when clarity is missing, even capable people stall. The good news is, this isn't permanent, and it's not random. It's something organizations can design for. Progress isn't about effort, it's about orientation. Capability needs structure to turn into momentum.